going. You are live. Good morning. Good morning. All right, give it a few minutes and let everybody get waking up, whatever the proper term. I hate today's terminology with that woke. Ugh. Okay. Anyways, good morning. I am Lady M. I am here for tea time with Lady M. And today is going to be a doozy. So, if you are here, welcome. If you are new, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you can interact with myself and others who are in the live and chatting. Yeah, who is with me this morning? Who is with me? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Again, I'm just going to give it a few seconds. Just let YouTube live waken up a little bit. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that way you can interact with myself and others in the chat. So, good morning. This is Tea Time with Lady M. I am Lady M, and we're going to go ahead and get started today. So we have gone through many grounding methods. So today, which is very fitting for what we're going into, we're going to do grounding methods for positive affirmations using I am statements, because I am is connected to your root chakra. So when you say I am and you understand it in the sense that you are grounding, then you feel that energy. And what I like to do on this one is what I found myself, grab yourself a mirror. I am obviously going to be talking to myself in the into my reflection of my camera. So what this does is it gives you that mirror image, and it helps you recognize who you are and what you're doing and start believing in yourself. So I say each one, there's 5 of them. You can change them up. You can add to it. You can do different ones. There's so many positive affirmations out there that help with the grounding, that help you start believing in yourself and start changing those negative annotations. So the first one, repeat after me. Again, you can close your eyes, you can grab a mirror, but repeat after me. State, I am grounded. And we're going to say these 3 times each. I am grounded. I am grounded. By the 3rd time, you're going to start feeling that energy moving. You're going to start feeling your body relaxing. The next one, I am full of energy. I am full of energy. I am full of energy. The next one, I am worthy of love. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of love. 2 more. I am abundant. I am abundant. I am abundance. Last one. I am guarded and protected. I am guarded and protected. Last one. I am guarded and protected. Good morning. So this is Tea Time with Lady M. And today's tea is brought to you again by the Missoula Tea Company. I am not sponsored by them, but I might see if I can. You never know. But I just really do enjoy their tea, and I do like trying new teas. This one is a caffeinated tea. It is called Bodacious Blue, and you'll notice that my tea is a little bit like, well, I guess it looks gray in the camera, but in person it looks very blue, like a pale blue. So it's gray in the light, but it's comes across blue. But what is in this one is the butterfly pea flower, which is what is turning the water to that blue. Lemongrass, black tea, mango, peppermint, and natural is the natural flavors. Smells heavenly. I don't get much peppermint. Yeah, I really don't taste much peppermint. At the end, you do. It's a very soft, subtle flavor. It's very florally, I guess you could say, with the pea flower and the lemongrass. It just gives it that floral essence. So, all right, good morning. So, today's topic is about ego. Man, so as you can see, I kind of started off with a grounding that is very essential, I guess you could say, to when you are transforming those negative thought demons that happen in our head. And you're going to see why that this is effective and why this means something while you're grounding. And it has so much to do with the ego, your shadow work, your healing, and doing all of that. So keep this grounding method in mind for later on, because I am going to go over a few things of what the ego is and how we can go about transforming it. So when you look up what the definition of ego is, you can get all the personal different answers, the generic answers, the ones by definition, or in the dictionary definition. So yeah, you can find all the definitions that you want, but which one relates to you? Which perspective can you go? And I found, and I'm going to be reading on this one, so just bear with me. Ego can be defined as the part of the psyche responsible for our sense of self, our ability to interact with the outside world. What does that mean? Well, our ego can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. Our ego, I know when I'm using my ego, I know when it's becoming more of a power thing, and I know when it's because it's healing. I know when to use my ego or how my ego is being used. My ego is not running me. That is the difference. So it's pretty much is the ego is saying it is the human personality. It is the things that we may not like about ourselves. It may be the things that we push off onto others, and what our intent is. Ego can go so many things. It's beautiful yet ugly. It really is, especially when you allow the ego to run who you are. Allow it to stop you in those fearful moments. So yeah. So ego in psychoanalytic theory is that portion of that human personality. So what we just talked about, that personality. And what is psychoanalytic theory? So another day, I can't talk. Oh, well. Anyways, so psychoanalytic theory is how the ego develops, I guess you could say. So we have stages of our development. And when I talk about stages, we could have things that we've known since childhood, and now we're trying to rewire our brains as adults to let go of that negative trait that we don't like, or breaking those cycles. So it starts with the earliest stages when we are infants, when we are born into this world, we are learning, we are growing, we're trying to figure out this new world. And if you're like some of us just come in knowing, and we're confused as all get out of what's going on. So that is a possibility. Yes, it does happen. Then we have, so once you go through the early stage, and we get to watch it. If we have kids, we get to see that visual. We get to see that. Hello to whoever is watching. I see you. I see you got 2 views. So Hello. Welcome. Don't be afraid to interact. And yeah, subscribe and chat with us. So, the second stage is going to be our early childhood. So once we get out of that baby stage, now we're getting into that toddler stage, early childhood, where we're really starting to develop our senses. We're learning how to articulate, how to talk, how to work with a pen or drink from a cup like an adult instead of using a bottle. We're using all these things, but we're also learning as in these childhood stages, we're watching, we're watching these adults that are doing this. So it comes back down to us. It comes back to those generational cycles. Now we're unwiring our brains and moving forward for those kinds of things. The third stage is so after early childhood, we go into the next stage, which is not childhood, but like our early adolescent childhood slash later childhood slash early adulthood. So your early adolescence, when we're really, now this is where it's the ego really can make or break somebody, because we're learning these traits, either they be positive, they be negative, they be these kinds of different things. We just don't know where our ego is going to take us. Trauma can really affect our ego. There's just, again, so many things that can, in this third stage, can really affect our trauma. Not only can it be ourselves, could it be trauma, it could be other people. Those people's words, their egos that they push onto us, they project onto us, especially as children, those get stuck into our heads. Those develop into those negative thought demons. Those are what we get when we are developing our egos. So just keep that in mind. Ego is a very broad spectrum. Hello to whoever just joined. Make sure you subscribe so you can interact with myself and others who are here. Hello. Today we are talking about ego. So that's that stage in the ego. Then we move to more of the final stage of ego, or the latter stage of ego, where we have to rewire our brains. Now we are learning to grow from those negative things. We are learning to let go of our egos. We are learning to let go of everything that has kind of made us who we are, but is stopping us from who we're meant to be. Keep that in mind. Who we are meant to be and not who we are can be two different things, especially in the perspective realm. So just keep that in mind. Ego is not anything that is new. It is nothing that has been, taken apart. It has been here for centuries. It has been here for thousands of years. We've all had egos. The gods and goddesses that we may work with, Jesus Christ, all those people have had an ego. How they use it is just what makes the difference. The ego is a component of personality that strikes a realistic balance between the demands of the ID's primal urges and the superego's moral conscience. Now, this is from studies of Sigmund and Freud. So that is so weird. I have music in my ear and it quit playing on me. So, anyways, yeah. So that is your ego. There's like a thing, when you are starting to learn your ego, about your ego and what's going on, you're hitting just the tip of the iceberg. You have to work yourself down. You have to go and work into those things. So why do we need an ego? An ego is a crucial role. It is something that we rely on. Whether we go into flight or fight stance, or we are projecting onto others in a negative way. So yeah, it's kind of all those things. Could you have an inflated ego or an unchecked ego? Could it go? Yes. You could be like, yes, I'm doing great. I'm on top of the world. Nothing can hurt me. Nothing will bring me down. And then you allow that power sense. And you can think of it this way, because a lot of religions, ego can be used to instill fear into people. And if you are like myself and you are an observer, you will realize that some religions, and again, this is not a stab at religion, it's just some religions, they will use their ego to instill fear into people. They're using those 7 deadly sins to instill fear. So they keep them and have those following. It's the same thing as a cult, but a cult is bad, but religion is not. Same things. When a cult gets broken up, or whatever the proper terminology is, whenever it is there, they see that they're like, okay, they're trying to get the following, they're getting people to join their religion, understand who they are, what they're doing, and then when they get busted for whatever they're doing wrong, for example, Charles Manson, it then becomes a cult. So it's the same thing. It's just a matter of perspective. Ego can get in the way, and those generally are coming with power hungry people. It's just unfortunate, and that's the way it is. I hate to say it. So, I can't knock them, I guess you could say. I it's the ego. So when you get an inflated, unchecked ego, sometimes you need that harsh reality check saying, hey, your ego is out of check, especially if you're trying to work on bettering yourself. Now, if you have narcissists involved or toxic people, their ego isn't going to listen. They're going to want to shut you out because they want to be on top of that. And in my research, I have found that there are different kinds of toxic egos that you can learn to pick out. So yeah. But what it comes down to is you have to understand your ego. When you're able to understand your ego and what the ego is, you're learning personal growth. You are learning, and you're also cultivating those healthy relationships. You're able to communicate. You're able to do the things that you need to do. But when your ego gets in the way, those negative toxic traits can become barriers. They absolutely can, especially in relationships. So you need to understand, it comes back down to, is this a me problem or is this a you problem? Is this my ego getting in the way? Because I know when my ego gets in the way, I will be the first to admit that. But sometimes I put my ego out there on purpose, because if I don't, then I am allowing people to walk all over me. And that's not what I want. So I don't do that. Let's see, when we can recognize our egos, and this again, it goes back to your shadow work. It goes back to your grounding, doing that work, being consistent with yourself. 21 days makes a habit. You're going to get tired of me saying this. 21 days makes a habit. Once you get into that habit, guess what? You're going to start really realizing these things, your thoughts, your emotions, what else? Let's see, your actions. So if you're lashing out irrationally, that is part of your ego. That is you protecting yourself. That is you trying to not let others hurt you. So you may lash out irrationally. You may project. You may let your ego come out. So is it a bad thing? Not necessarily. but it can be depending on who is looking in, the perspective, all different. It's the ego. If you think about it, the ego does allow us to make our conscious choices. I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to, if I couldn't do this. My ego told me, hey, you need to get your voice out there. You need to be heard. Am I doing it in a negative way? I hope not, because I want to teach people. I want people to learn. I want people to grow. So my ego is here to help those people. Now, let me give a situation. You can tell me, you can come at me, and I am working, with people. I help them spiritually. I help them healing, and they are helping others in their journey the way it's supposed to. And they're like, this person's not listening to me, blah, 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 blah. And this is where I'll let my ego get in check, because I come with the gift of grit and grace. If it is not my time, I am an observer. If it is not my time to step in and help that person, and you are asking me for help because they're not listening to you, they're going to get the version of the grit. I'm not going to be nice, because again, I am an observer. And if you don't think I don't know what you're doing, I absolutely do. I'm also a seer. So that means I am very, very, very much aware of that. So yeah, I will let my ego get in check, because if I'm not meant to be helping them in that moment, then yeah, I'm going to say, okay, they're not going to like my energy. They're not ready for my energy. Is that a bad thing? No. It's me forewarning. That's saying they're not going to like this. It just comes with the territory. Am I willing to help them? Absolutely. But if they're already not listening to you on the same things I've given you advice on the same multiple times, and you're going back and you're relaying those messages to those people to help them out, then yes, your ego is going to get in the way, and I'm going to let my ego come out. It's just how it has to be done. Sometimes you have to let the ego out so you are not being walked all over like a rug. You are protecting your energy. You are protecting yourself. But I also allow the grace to come with it. If I see you are doing the hard work, and I know you're doing the hard work, especially if I've pulled my energy out and I'm just in that observer phase, I am going to notice you. I am going to let you know, hey, I see you, because my ego is boosting you, because you deserve it. So I hope my ego boost for you is boosting your own ego. Start believing in yourself. You begin, let's see. It influences our perception. So going back to those stages, when we are learning and we are growing, if we're thrown into a toxic, unhealthy environment that is always negative, those things are going to be ingrained into our brain. They're going to be ingrained into our ego. Some of us, it may be fight or flight. Some of us, instead of expressing our emotions like sadness or happiness or joy, or it comes out as anger, we lash out irrationally. We shut down because our ego it wants to protect ourselves. It doesn't know how to react. So when you start working on those things, that ego starts to lessen, and you start to see the beautiful side of it and how you can help people. Let's see. You begin to balance your individuality. You begin, and your interconnectedness. You can, again, it goes back to that shadow work, and it plays into shadow work. Your ego is a big, big, big part of your shadow work. If you can learn to let go of your ego while you're doing your shadow work and you're working on getting to your higher self, you are already above most people who are still stuck in them cycles. So just remember, you are beginning the transformation. You are transcending to a higher purpose, getting to know the true you, and allowing that human side of our ego and just letting it fall away. You may have multiple lives. Find who you are. Find what makes you you. And that's the beautiful part. There is no wrong path. There is no wrong choices. Maybe in your path, you're coming to a fork in the road and you're saying, okay, do I go this way or do I go this way? Well, guess what? There is no wrong choice. Either one is going to have its own consequences. Some might be a little bit lighter than this path over here. It's all based on your ego. And when you get to that journey, you may have some hard slaps in the face by the universe or whatever, especially if you begin to get power hungry and your intent is no longer there. If you are no longer growing and learning in your journey, you are stuck. I will tell you that right now. And more than likely, your ego is what is keeping you there. You are enjoying that power that you are being given. You are enjoying that abundance that you are being thrown, or whatever the case. So if you're stuck and you're no longer learning or growing, then you are letting your ego take over. You are letting the ego drive your car going down the interstate 90 miles an hour, and it's saying, let's go. And you don't know what's going to happen. You're just along for the ride. Honey, break those cycles. Get off that ego train. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Because most of the time it leads to misery. It leads to heartbreak. It leads to so many things that just are unhealthy. So a little bit of, I talked about inflated or unchecked ego. You may notice it in others. You may notice it in yourself. And if you notice it in yourself, that's a huge step, because that goes back to you're starting to recognize those emotions, those triggers, those things that go with it. So, and when you can break it down and you can start seeing those red flags in yourself, and you can start seeing it in others, and you start tending to stay away from those. But signs of an inflated ego, constant need for validation. So I have done this. I have let my ego done this. Constant need for validation, me throwing my artwork out there, and seeing if I did a good job, or me going live, or hey, how did I do? Because I let those negative thought demons or thought gremlins get inside my head and say, you're not doing a good enough job. You didn't do a good reading. That reading wasn't accurate. You need to reevaluate and rethink. And I get into my head and I start doubting myself. That is a ego. It is part of, it is being validated. And that could come from trauma. In previous videos, I've mentioned I used to need to be validated by people and love, and I used to seek and search that. And I did it very unhealthily. And now that I'm in my solitary peace, I don't seek those relationships. I don't have a need to find them. They happen to find me. They come to me when the time is right. My soul family is out there. And, when the time is right, the pieces will fit together. And guess what? We will find each other. I am great with that. That is part of my ego. That is being. I don't need the constant need for validation anymore. So just keep that in mind. That is part of the ego. That is part of shadow work. The next one is disregards for others' opinions. This is the people who like to overtalk, overshadow. You say something and we're like, no, that's not right. And they are manipulating you to convince you that your opinion is not worth it. It's not great. It is not there to do what you need to do, right? So the other one, and this ties into it, is dominating conversations. They will literally push you aside. They will tell you about their life stories. Even if you have a moment where there's a pause and you start talking to relate to their story, they instantly cut you off and they continue talking, because what you have to say is not important, not as important as what they have to see. That's part of the ego. It is an inflated ego. It is a toxic ego all out there. You can also have a lack of empathy. You could have excessive pride. So lack of empathy, you can't feel others. You don't realize you're hurting others or you're putting them down, and that's making them more miserable because you want to make yourself happier, um, and project onto others with your ego, your toxic ego. Um, and you just don't care. You could best friend could get into a car wreck and they're like, "Oh, cool, you survived." So it could play. There's so many things that could play into that. Excessive pride. You could go on a spree and you say, I have just created this shadow journal and it went viral. And then you keep bragging about it, even though it's kind of past its moment of fame. And yes, I did kind of throw my journal out because, I do want my moment of fame. I do want that out there. And I am going to brag. I am going to share that when I drop it. I am going to get it out there. So, but I just use that as an example because I am pride. I am putting in the hard work. I am getting it out there. I am sharing a piece of me that I never thought I would. So yes, I am sharing my ego with the world to get it out there, to get it going. The same thing with the hubby's board game. I'm going to get it out there, get it going, and just let it thrive because it's going to, and I want it to. So I'm going to let my ego get in the way in a positive, healthy manner. I'm not going to hit it dead on the thing. I'm not going to say, "Oh, it went viral. Let's do it again." I'm not about that. I'm just here to get the message across. That's all. So all these things that I have said all go into the ego. They all affect different things. But the biggest things that ego can affect is your relationships. It can be your intimate relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever the case. It could be your friendships. It could be people who you work with, your coworkers, people who you are just passing in by. Your ego can affect all of these things. So just keep that in mind. So communication breakdown. We're going to use finances as an example. Ego is a big thing on finances. You could be in a relationship with somebody where one person is financially stable, right? And they're very assuming that the other person is just as financially responsible, but they haven't communicated together what their financial responsibilities are. And that sets up for failure. That sets up for ego. That sets up for miscommunications. It shuts up for, or it goes for people not feeling like they are good enough in those things because the communication is not there. So when you are letting your ego take control and you're with your partner or your friend or whoever it may be, if that communication is a barrier and you're letting your ego make it be a barrier, that is on you. There's always a solution. You can talk it out. And if it gets things heated, walk away because you don't need the projections. So just walk away. Walk away. Other ones, power struggles. And that goes back to, are they dominating the conversations? Are they disregarding your opinion? Maybe they want something done one way and you don't do it the right way. And you are trying to figure it out, but there's no communication to get it done the right way. They ain't showing you how to properly get it done. So now you have a power struggle. I can say I've had power struggles in the military. I was raised old school, so I went in old school, and I went in to the military thinking, like, as I progressed, times changed. And it was really, really, really hard to watch some of these troops and these airmen, because I was Air Force, just do whatever they wanted. And I was that person. I'm like, excuse me, what are you doing? Why are you walking with your hands in your pockets? That's not against the rules, or just whatever the case may be, or they look like a hot mess. I was that person to let my ego call them out. And you know what? I kind of had to do it in the military. My ego had to be that enforcer. I had to enforce, if I had to be, if I had to follow the rules, that means I was going to enforce the rules. So those people that were airmen and below, that were under rank for me, they could follow by example. So I had to let my ego come out, and I had to let it come out in that negative, toxic way. It was a power struggle for me. And I had to work. I really, really, really had to work with that one, because it also came down to communication breakdown. It really was a struggle. Your, again, inability to empathize. You don't understand that person's feelings, what they're going through. You're all of a sudden lashing out irrationally because they can't get something done right. And maybe they had a shit day and nothing's going right. They tried getting the dishes done, and you know what? Whole load of bowls just decided to jump off the counter onto the floor, and now you have to sweep it up. And you don't get the chance to explain that, because that negative ego, that inflated ego, that unchecked ego is coming about, and it's putting people into, it's instilling that fear into people so they don't use their voice. They have lack of accountability. So this is now it's not a me problem, this is a you problem. Yo, yeah, oh yeah, somebody else did that. That wasn't me. That is what it is. That's accountability. You are not being accountable for your own measures. If you can't say for, fact, and you're trying to push it under the rug or push it onto somebody else, then you are not being accountable, and your ego needs to be checked. Sorry. And if you're getting frustrated about that and you're getting mad, now you're projecting onto me, sweetheart. I don't want your ego projecting on me. It's just negative. No, thank you. No, thank you. So just, if somebody is consistently blaming you for something, maybe it's cleaning the house. You didn't get the house cleaned. You didn't, or you cheated, or you didn't get our kids to school on time. They're consistently late. They're now truant. That is a lack of accountability. If you're the one that is supposed to do it, hey, I'm sorry, our kid was late this morning. I was running a little late. I got behind in the dishes, and yeah, it was a mess. It happens. Be honest. And if that person can't accept that, then maybe that's a person that's a toxic person you need to learn to let go of. Let go of that ego. Let go of what you are taking on. Okay. So let it go. Now, the next one is, it comes down to, maybe you're in a relationship, or it's a friend, or it's a family member, and you have a conflict that goes unresolved, and you can't get it resolved. There's going to be no resolving, because this person's ego is going to get defensive, and this person's ego is going to get defensive, and it's just going to be, they're just going to be at each other's throat. So you need this person who's in the middle, who's not going to let their ego get in the way and be a balance. Okay, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? Okay, so here's the way I understand it. Here's the way I see it. And that will bring it back into the thing, especially if you have a mediator. But when you let your egos go in conflicts, that's when you get your lashing out irrationally. This is where you get, I hate to say it, domestic violence. And those things can be prevented. But we also live in fear with those people. That's a whole different story. I do have some on that one. So they don't want there is no moving forward from that conflict. So when it arises again, there was no solution. And you have to walk on eggshells, and you shouldn't have to walk around eggshells because somebody's ego is inflated, or they're unchecked because they're narcissistic, or they're just a toxic person in general. Because they are out there. Those people are out there more than you know, and they don't want the help. They don't want to heal. They don't want to do these things. for themselves. So just keep that in mind. Ego is, again, it can go so many ways, sideways. It can go good, bad, ugly. It's all about perspective and how we handle things, how we're doing those shadow works, how we're healing, how we're being consistent with ourselves, and moving forward. So when you're, which is funny because you know how I talked about our grounding method, we used I am statements, right? So when you are using I am statements, not only is that a root chakra, it is a true self. You are saying these things to start believing in yourself. When you start, what comes after the I am, that is the ego, because you're describing yourself. And it could be a good thing. Again, it could be a bad thing. It all depends. So, examples of true self I am. So in the beginning, we did our grounding and it was I am. So we started with I am statements. So, and we did it 3 consecutive times. There was 5 different ones. You can change them up, however, whatever. Anyways, so true self I am. We started with I am grounded. So we are putting that into our heads. I am grounding myself. I am grounded. I am grounded, because we want to start believing in that positive energy. We are rewiring that thinking. Even though our ego is involved, we are rewiring that ego to a positive light. But we want to make sure that we're not getting excessively proud of working on our ego and changing into those things. So those, and you work through those things. I am protected. I am, let's see, what was the other one? I am guarded and I am protected. The more you say that, the more you feel guarded, the more you feel protected. You are saying that I am statement because you are trying to believe that I am abundant. When I say I'm abundant, I don't mean I'm rich by any means. What that means is I'm abundant in love. I am abundant with my family. I have a roof over my head. I am able to do these things and help others grow in their journey. I am abundant. That's my abundance. That is my ego. That's where I pride myself. So that's what I remind myself in. And that's what I try to change my life. I change it into a positive, instead of a negative. So practice yourself daily those things, rewiring that thing. Sit in front of the mirror 5 minutes and just work on those I am statements. It has to be the same one over and over and over and over again. So be it. Let it be the same one. Let it be. There's no wrong way. There is absolutely no wrong way to go about doing it. So, and it also goes back to like when we project onto people, remember all that projecting, those negative, the things, it also goes to an ego that wants something from another. And what ego doesn't will usually play some kind of role to get its needs to be met. So those are just kinds of different things that we can get our egos going. Things we can do to recognize our ego. So when we're recognizing our ego, I've already given you some tools to help you along the way. This one, this goes a little bit deeper. It goes back into the shadow works. It goes into that consistent work. It goes back into who you are, what you're doing as a person. So when you are complaining or you're bitter or you're resentment, that is your ego. So now, guess what? Find those triggers, find those underlying emotions. Now you're understanding the ego and why it's being that way. Maybe we're holding on to something negative and we need to work through it. We get the signs. We just got to pay attention to them. Are you a people pleaser, or demanding or needing respect? I've been that. I've been a people pleaser, still am a people pleaser. But the difference is I know how to say no now. That's the difference. materialism, accumulation, greed. So are you getting these things and are you accumulating things with greed, or are you, or could you just go completely and not worry about the material things and not worry about it? Could I? Oh, absolutely. I could up and go 100% peace and not worry about it. Those are material things. Do not hold me back. At one point, they did. It's a part of letting go. It's a beautiful process. It's a hard process. It's got a lot of bumps in the road, but it was part of what made my ego a better place, because I had to go through those to get to those highs and get to those lows and understand that I do like to people please. I am second. I like to help others. But the difference is I'm here on a mission and I'm going to help you, whether you're permanent or temporary in this life's path. That's the difference. Now, competition. You have a need to dominate others. Oh my goodness. I have men in my house, and when they get together with their friends or anything, that male stamina comes out. That just, they gotta fight, they gotta do all of those lovely things just to be dominating. Who's the bigger bad guy? Right. Again, these are how you can recognize your own ego or even others. That's the beautiful part. When you start, but I recommend start with your own ego first, because when you start recognizing your own ego, then it's easier to recognize others' egos and recognize, again, if they're projecting or those kinds of things. Vanity or self-hatred. And I'm sure a lot of us can attest to this one. I am my own worst critic. When I get in my head, I can get into my head and I can get lost very, very, very easy, because I can go into some very, very dark places. And that comes from trauma, because people used to tell me, oh, you're skinny or you're evil. Because at a young age, I was spiritual and I believed things and I saw things in a different light, but I was told I was evil. So growing up, I learned to close myself off because I thought I was evil, even though I didn't feel like I was evil. So I had to repurpose my brain. I had to stop hating myself and start learning to love myself. Judgment and opinions. Now, judgment and opinions, it can go on yourself. It's part of that self-hatred, that dislike. Maybe we have body dysmorphia. For the longest time, I really did have body dysmorphia because from a young age, I was extremely, extremely skinny, very, very small. So I got made fun of. I got told I was anorexic. I got told I was bulimic. The people who did it, the kids, they probably didn't know any better. But the ones that had the life affecting damage are the ones that I lived under their roof. And being called an Ethiopian child in a negative, toxic way because you're so skinny and you do everything you can to eat and you gain weight and you're not anorexic or bulimic, but those things have negative annotations on you. And I could have very, very easily developed an eating disorder. I mean, I kind of did. I would eat, but I wouldn't gain weight. And then when I get to a point where I'm super stressed or I'm in that depressed moment, I struggle to eat. I forget to eat. I will go days without eating. So that's part of my ego and that judgment, those opinions. You have to, if you are passing, this is why I say you should never judge a book by its cover, because you never know what's going on with that person. You never know what they're going through. Ask those questions. Don't judge. Now, if your intuition or your the little bubbly thing saying, something's not right, follow that intuition, because chances are something is not right. Because I don't judge a book by cover, but if my intuition is telling me something doesn't feel right, I'm going to try to find a way to leave that scenario as safely as possible. I'm going to follow my intuition. I'm going to follow my ego. Let's see. Superiority and prejudice, defensiveness, feeling attacked. So even if you are having a humble conversation with somebody, you may all of a sudden feel the need to lash out irrationally because you feel like you're being attacked. And the person isn't doing so. They're just trying to have a conversation and they just accidentally triggered you, and it just instantly defenses you. That's your ego. That's protecting yourself. Normally, when your ego is very prominent, it's very black and white thinking. There is no out of the box. There is no different perspective. It's my way or the highway kind of thing when people let their ego out. So those are just things that help with recognizing things that we can do to cultivate our ego and keep raising awareness. Again, it's going to come down shadow work. It's going to keep your grounding, making those daily habits, being consistent with yourself. So that's going to tame your ego. That way, when it comes to a topic that once you shut down and you lashed out irrationally about because you didn't know how to respond, you now can move forward and talk about that topic. You can communicate because there's no longer a communication barrier. You're no longer letting your ego get involved. You can do mindful practices such as the I am grounding exercise or meditation or breathing exercises. You could do reflective journaling. So doing that shadow journal, writing things down, getting it out, and reflecting who you are. Ask those questions. Where you are today. What are your emotions? Get to know yourself. That's the person you want to get to know. Get to know yourself. You can do embracing, well, not do it, but you have to embrace vulnerability when you are letting the ego go and you are bringing it in, because that's when constructive feedback comes in. That's where, or loving feedback, things that people give you if they say they don't like it. And all of a sudden you're like, well, if they don't like it, then maybe it is a negative trait. And you have to reflect. You have to do some deep thinking. And if that's a trait that you like, is that something that you want to carry on? You seek the feedback. So if I reach out like on a drawing or anything, you're going to reach out and ask, hey, what messages do you see? What things? Because there's things that I miss. And if I'm doing it for somebody, I want to make sure that my intuition is not leading me astray. Because if it's leading me astray, then something is messed up with myself or our energetic connection. And I have to figure out why. So that embracing vulnerability, let yourself cry, find yourself that sounding board, give yourself that person, and let them be your sounding board. Cry it out, vent, get angry, get flustered, do what you need to do. Because I know I have my sounding boards and I go to each one for different things. Like my sister, she is my absolute sounding board when I am just flustered and I just need to be brought down and I can't get a hold of my hubby. She is my first go-to person. I absolutely will call her, but my first go-to person to bring me down, bring me back, and get my ego in check is my hubby. Because it's either I'm super angry, I'm crying, whatever the case may be, emotional. I'm a female. I get it. Don't gotta remind me, but it happens. And so I have my sounding boards and they bring me back. They allow me to do those things. And I do the same thing for them. And I offer my energy. If you need me to be a sounding board, just tell me, hey, I need a sounding board and I need to vent. Doesn't mean I necessarily need to give advice, but I'm there to listen. You work your own stuff out. It's sometimes how it works. You may vent with yourself with your sounding board. That's your ego. When you Also things you work on, it's again that increased self-awareness. It becomes improved relationship. You start weeding out those negative toxins out of our garden, those weeds, and keep doing the things that we need to do to move forward. We are getting better relationships. We are gaining that self-respect. We have our ego in check, and we're meeting the same people who have that same balance, and they're not using their ego for bad, or letting that ego get to them. Greater personal fulfillment. When you start vibrating at that higher level, you start beginning to see those things manifest. You start beginning to see the things that you are healing like come to full light, and you feel fulfilled, you feel joy. And it's I can't make this up, but it is absolutely beautiful process. Is it bumpy? Absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? It does it. It it's a beautiful process. Now, before we go into our read, I'm going to finish up. I'm going to finish up on some toxic egos that people may not be aware of. Again, this is just in my rabbit holes of research, but they make sense to me. So, the first one is the machine slot ego. The person who is always asking for something and never giving back in return. So, for example, do you have that friend where they're like, one day they're like, hey, can I borrow $5? I need to get myself to work on the bus. I need to get a bus ticket or whatever the case may be. Okay. Goes on a week later, 2 weeks later, everything's good. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, can I borrow $10? I need to get myself something to eat. You're that type of friend, like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to let you starve. Keeps going. Now that it's resulted, now it's gone a couple months and you keep fending out money, but you haven't received any of that money back that they said that they were going to return, because borrowing means you're going to get back, right? So when you are borrowing a slot machine, when you have the slot machine ego, you're a continual borrow. So it can go from money, it could go from a vehicle, it could go to whatever's next. They continue to borrow your energy. They continue to borrow your time with no reciprocation of wanting to give it back. That is a negative, toxic person. Let it go. Those are the type of people you need to let go and shoo away, because you're never going to get back. Quit giving to those people. Quit wasting your energy on those people. The next one is the story drama teller ego. Always asking for your energy, your time, and your attention. They ask for advice knowing you will give it, but won't follow through with said advice. These are the people that are like, something's always happening in their life. Poor me, poor me, poor me. Always looking for excuses. They ask for advice. When you give advice, they don't listen to your advice, go against the grain, come back to you, start crying the poor me sob story, when come to find out they didn't listen to your advice in the first place. So these are the story drama teller egos. They really it's the poor me vibe. They don't care about anyone else but themselves, and just draining your time, your energy, because they know that once they hook, line, and sink you, it is there. The next one is a curiosity dealer ego. This is like your tricksters. They're flashing, they're generating guilt, being charming, feigning innocence. So what it is, they are the tricksters. Yeah, they're tricksters. So they're saying, "Ooh, look at me! I got fancy, expensive things." Try to rub it in your face. Then you got the people like your narcissists who are, thank you for the likes, whoever you are. those are your trickster energies are going to, or your generating guilt is going to be like your narcissists, your people who make you feel sorry for yourself and they beat you down because you may not have done something right. Um, being charming, this could be a person who puts on a real great act. They can be one way in front of people, and then when it's behind closed doors, it is a complete different story. It's completely toxic, it's completely breakdown. It's all with that ego, it all feigning innocence. Oh, well, it wasn't me, it was them. Like for me, in my case, my divorce was really, really ugly, and the other person used things against me, my traumas, and made me out to look like a bad person when I had all of this medical document, all of these documents that saying I wasn't, but they feigned their innocence, and they were able to work the judge that way. They made me to look like I was a bad person, like I was a bad mother. And that it took its toll. It really did. So that is ego. Before I do the reading though, Elise, if you are watching, I know this is a month overdue. I should have done this with intent. But I just wanted to read a letter, a beautiful handwritten letter from a girl that I went to school with since middle school. I love her. She has an amazing, bubbly personality. She's always just kind of been herself and beat to her own drum. And so this was one of a beautiful letter that I received. And at the very top, it says, "The most beautiful gardens bloom in the heart," which is absolutely true. Because my garden never started blooming until I started talking to it and giving it love and TLC. So it says, "Dear Roberta, or Lady M, or whoever else you go by." If you don't know, Roberta is my given name. Lady M is my spiritual name. "As you can see, I love writing. I have my grandmother's stationery and cards, so any reason to use them and move them along. It is like a long, long project. I have cards for years. Letters are meant to be shared. Everyone wants something besides bills." I can agree to that, Elise. "Okay, we all love Amazon also, but besides that, letter writing is a lost art. It really is. I remember in being a kid, we used to get pen pals from different countries or even different cities in the US. So, and it was always just fun to write your pen pal and engage and contact them. Um, so it is a lost art. So far, I have written roughly a dozen people. Not all will get back to me, which is okay. The thought is what counts. Cheers to a future and us seeing each other in person at least once. Elise. Love, Elise." Absolutely. And again, this is a handwritten letter. I think it is beautiful. It was written a month ago. I'm sorry. But I do intend on writing Elise back. I did tell her I wasn't going to. And that's because I normally don't write people back. But I have a little surprise coming her way. So when she gets it, it's going to take some time because it's going to require me drawing a little bit. So Elise, if you are watching this, you do have a letter coming, I promise, as well as with something special because I know you are a fan of art. So that is, I believe, is absolutely beautiful. So before we finish the day, we are going to use Work Your Light Oracle deck. This is a new deck I got from, which is funny, a blind date with an Oracle deck. I knew I needed a new one, not necessarily for myself, but as being a seer, I need help with being able to work my light with not only myself, my hubby, those that I'm helping, because I am a shadow worker. So this will be the deck that we will be using primarily from here on out, unless another deck calls, but Work Your Light will be our primary deck. So good morning, Work Your Light. what guidance do you have for us this week? What messages need to be heard this week? Sure. For everyone in tea time and Lady M. And for those of us who are joining now or who are joining later on, thank you. I hope you enjoy. Please leave your comments, your questions. If you feel you need a group to come into, you can find me on the Book of Face, Spiritual Brew, with the same logo that's on my YouTube channel. So I'm very easy to find. We are a small group. So again, we're just a small group here to help each other learn and grow. 3 more shuffles. So far we have a few cards that have come out for messages that need to be heard. Okay. Ooh, okay. I like where this is going. So we're going to start off with the crumbling. What are you clinging on to? So this ties very, very, very well with our ego and letting that darkness go, letting those judgments, letting all those things come crumbling down so we can be vulnerable to our true selves. So we're opening up to our higher selves. We're allowing those walls to come crumbling down. The next one is going to be protection. Call back your power. Cut those cords and soul retrieval. So this is a part of your ego. Your ego is part of your energy. Call that energy back. Push all that energy that you no longer need away. Protect yourself. Protect, because while you're crumbling, you're going to be going through some changes. You're going to need that protection. The next one is you're unbound. You are releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. So right now, while you're calling back your energy and cutting those cords, you're also cutting those karmic cycles. You are unbreaking those ties and setting yourself free to who you were meant to be, which comes back to you are crumbling these ties, crumbling them down. You're withering them away so you can let go. Learn to let go. So when you can learn to let go of whatever you're clinging on to and allow the crumbling to fully happen, you're going to be so unbound by those karmic ties. You're going to release those soul patterns. It's going to be like so many weights have just been lifted off your shoulder. You're going to feel joy. You're going to feel happiness. You're going to feel those things. The next one is going to be trust the niggle. What is the niggling feeling you're trying to tell you? So that's, again, your ego is coming in. What is it trying to tell you? Is there an inclination that you're in a situation where you shouldn't be and you need to get out? Follow that stomach. Follow that intuition, because it's there. It's telling you for a reason. And if it's telling you for a reason, then you need to get out of what you're going. You need to trust it. You need to follow your intuition and go with it. Let the ego go. Let the ego go. And then again, just to close it out, trust your path. If you knew you would be supported, what would you do? Because guess what? While you're trusting this niggle, you see that there's people behind you. There is your soul team behind you. You are still bound with your soul team. You are still protected by your angels and your gods and your goddesses, your deities. So trust your path. Trust that when you're crumbling down, you're allowing those walls to fall, that you're letting go and you're trusting this path. You're moving forward into freedom. That it's beautiful. It ties so well into ego, letting that ego go and just being free, being vulnerable, being who you're meant to be. This was a beautiful live this week. Didn't see many live faces, but that's okay. I hope you come and rewatch you're watching the replay. Just let me know where you're at. As always, I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see you next week.